council, where we actually have the wonderful opportunity to look at what are we going to do and what kind of organization will we be and what will we do for this community. And it's all encompassed in a proposed budget, and that budget is from the staff, and I think the manager agrees that he's got a great budget team, much better than when I was doing that, so that's really good. Oh, yes, so. So what I'd like to say is that, this is our introductory meeting, so we have lots of time and have allocated a number of times when we'll have budget public hearing on the 12th, and we'll have adjustments and comments from the council members, and we would need to have those hopefully by the 19th so that everyone can be ready and prepared for the next year's budget. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to the manager, unless there's something else that the council has had. I'm sorry. We're going to do introductions. Thank you. All right, let's start with our clerk.
Billy Tons, Deputy City Clerk.
Anthony Fox, Interim City Attorney.
Renee Johnson, and I have the honor of representing District 4.
Good evening, Marjorie Molina, District 5.
Good evening, Dimple Ashmera at large.
Good evening, Dante Anderson, Mayor Pro Tem, District 1.
Good evening, Vi Lyles, Mayor.
Good evening, Malcolm Graham, District 2.
Ed Driggs, District 7.
All right. If you would introduce yourself.
Of course, it is Tijuana Brown, Charlotte City Council, District 3.
All right. All right.
Julia Martin, City Manager's Office.
Okay. Any other things that we need to do before we dive in? Hearing none, Mr. Jones, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor and members of council. Julia and I were trying to count, and we're counting on our fingers, and I guess that's not the best way to start a budget presentation, but we think this is the ninth budget presentation that I provided to the City Council. So I'm pleased to begin the presentation, and I really want to start with FY 2024. We talked a bit about being at an inflection point in this community and trying to navigate how we could go about providing excellent services and to make sure that it's cost-effective to our residents. So in FY 2024, we talked a bit about whether we would be in a decline, be on the steady trajectory, or even advance it a bit. And so by the time we got to FY 25, you did approve a 1.37 property tax increase, with about 0.82 going to operating, primarily public safety, another 0.24 going to capital, really housing and mobility, and lastly 0.31 going into arts and culture. I will tell you that in the current budget, what that allowed us to do, especially around the capital piece, is to have historic investments in our corridors and affordable housing, as well as in transportation. So I'll start with the corridors, and I don't think the story has been told enough. It's really a 5-year journey, starting off with some investments in the corridors. I believe it was $14.5 million in the CIP and $10 million in PAYGO back in 2020. And I just want to say that those investments over the years at $95.6 million has really pulled in, for every dollar that the city has invested, $1.71 in the private sector and federal grants. So really, as we start to look at this, not as $95.6 million of city investment, but $260 million in community investment over the last 5 years. I would be remiss if I didn't bring up what Angela Charles says to me over and over again. She says, Marcus, don't leave out what's happening with infrastructure. So you take that same period of time, Charlotte Water has invested $396 million in the corridors, and stormwater another $154 million. So $810 million invested in our corridors for opportunity. It was never the thought process that the city would do this alone, and the great news is that folks have come along with us. Also, with that property tax increase last year, we were able to do more in terms of the bond with the Housing Trust Fund. What's important is, if you look at the 3 bars, not quite to the far right, but before the blue bar, that's when the Housing Trust Fund went up to $50 million. And so if you start to look at those bonds, that's 47% of all the units that have been constructed since the beginning of the Housing Trust Fund back in 2002. And we just can't wait to see what we'll get out of the 2024 bond, which was $100 million in terms of Affordable Housing Trust Fund. It's a new approach. Instead of just having multifamily construction, through the Housing Community Safety Committee and this council, you came up with new goals: economic mobility, neighborhood affordability, and residential stability, and not just a focus on multifamily construction, but home ownership, natural occurring affordable housing, rehab and repair, shelter and supportive housing, and collaboration. And then, just as important as the first two, the historical bond for transportation, $238 million, $123 million more than the highest on record. But it was not just roads, it is congestion mitigation, Vision Zero, sidewalks. And it's not just the sidewalks with $50 million and Vision Zero with $20 million, but it was a test, $55 million in what we call strategic investment areas. So let's think about the 6 corridors of opportunity and then overlay that with 16 additional areas where infrastructure is important. So what we did is took that $55 million and tested it in 2 of these strategic investment areas. And while this may seem simple, it's extremely important. You know, a sidewalk that we identified in August, it was constructed by January. But more importantly, it was the missing link between a bus stop and miles of existing neighborhood sidewalks. What we've learned from this test is in this project, we did it twice as fast and at half the cost, and mainly because we had 14 different departments working together as opposed to in silos. And these projects maximize connectivity, safety, and accessibility. So we want to learn from that. We want to learn from these strategic investment areas and also create this team of teams approach with an organizational improvement team. So what we will be doing is focusing on how we can just be better in certain areas. How can we deliver exceptional customer service to our residents? 2, with no additional resources, again, team of teams approach. We'll have Monica Allen that helps us create these teams as we go about looking at specific areas. I will tell you that Allison Craig got out in front of us with the Charlotte Development Center and already is looking for opportunities to take these 7 departments and provide enhanced services to the community. We'll also have a focus on procurement and CBI. I am merging those 2 together, elevating them to its own city department so that we can have a focus on making sure that we are being responsive to our community, but also responsive to the organization. So we'll continue on this path. And I think this is what's extremely important about this slide. No tax increase, no property tax increase is planned for FY26. I do want us to take a look at the next 2 years, though. There's a conversation going on in the community about a 1-cent sales tax for transportation in transit. If that occurs and we begin to collect revenue beginning next July 2026, it has an impact on the overall budget, and I'll explain that in a bit. If that doesn't occur, the stress that we have on the system would suggest that we need another revenue source, and I'll explain to you that, why I'm suggesting that. But then when we move forward to FY 2028, it's a reval year, and I had this conversation with you at the annual strategy meeting, and I'll tell you, I actually had this conversation with Councilmember Driggs probably 3 years ago at the last reval that, and we won't go into detail, but you understand, for the most part, when you have to set the property tax rate at revenue neutral, you're not getting the growth that would match some of the inflationary pressures we have. So I just had these 2 boxes because decision points as we go forward and how do we continue on this path. We still need a revenue source to match the growth, but this council has positioned ourselves in a great place. The last time I was here to present the budget, we had not agreed to changes to the interlocal agreement. So in June 2024, the members of the MTC agreed to changes to the interlocal agreement. That allowed us, the opportunity to purchase the red line, which unlocked a conversation about the 1 cent sales tax that this community is having. The enabling legislation was introduced in February of 2025 with enhancements to rail, bus, and roads. And then lastly, in March 2025, the Transit Authority legislation was introduced also. So we're balancing the 2026 budget without a tax rate increase, without a property tax increase. At the retreat or the annual strategy meeting in January, we talked about making sure that we are recovering our fee recovery accurately. And so in other words, we have a policy for 100% fee recovery, and we're not always there with some of them. And then we also are reducing expenditures. I will tell you that I strongly believe that we are near the edge of what can be reasonable reductions without having an impact on the community. Much of this budget takes away some of the flexibility that the departments have, but maybe more importantly, some of the enhancements that the departments had are not funded in this budget. Okay, Charlotte continues to have the lowest total cost of government. We benchmark ourselves against the 12 largest cities in North Carolina. And when you start to think about the total cost and that solid waste fee, water, stormwater, property tax, we continue to be the lowest in total cost of government. So even with the proposed sales tax increase in 2027, Charlotte would continue to be one of the lowest, total costs of government would remain low. The sales tax increase for transportation still alleviates some of the stress in other budget areas. So let's do a couple of pictures. So basically, we have three pots. We have our general fund, which funds basically the services that we have as a city. We have a debt service fund that pays for some of the investments we have in the CIP, and then we have PAYGO. And essentially, we take the property tax and we take the sales tax, and if you want to call them levers, we pour some into one bucket and some into the other. What's important about the sales tax for transportation is that's $102 million for the first year, and it's estimated to grow by 4% each year. So that's $5.7 billion over a 30-year period. That can go directly into that debt service budget bucket, as well as the PAYGO bucket, which gives us more capacity to take some of the property tax and put it back in that general fund budget. And that pays salaries for police officers, for firefighters, for the folks in the room. So again, while it's all about mobility, the way we've structured our budget, it just provides us some relief on the general fund and with the property tax. And this $104 million is really worth about 11% of our general fund budget. However, the big thing is, let's move it away from the budget and let's talk about how transformational this is. $5.7 billion over a 30-year period. We start to think about our discussions over the last few years about our strategic mobility plan, 2,000 projects across our entire community, but really no source to pay for them. $55 million that we had in this budget is a drop in the bucket, and we've shown that it works, that we can take a team of teams approach and we can deliver projects, because if we can't deliver the projects, it's very difficult for the community to say, well, let's give you additional resources to try to deliver them. So we've tested it. We believe that we're ready as a team if this comes to fruition. I think what's also important with the FY26 budget is just the principles. We wanted to make sure that we preserve core services. We have no layoffs in this budget. We wanted to maintain our reserves and invest in key council priorities. This process, every year we analyze services and service delivery. We look at to increase that fee recovery rate. But maybe more importantly than anything else, it was just words years ago when we started to talk about breaking silos. And we talk about a horizontal organization. We are that. So this interdepartment collaboration is what we live for. FY26 budget is structurally balanced. That means one-time revenues associated with one-time expenditures. And it's not only balanced in FY26, we always have a two-year lens. So by June 30 of 2027, this, in a two-year lens, the budget will be balanced also. We don't take into account in FY '27 any policies, decisions around compensation. But again, we don't want to create a problem in '27 as we build the '26 budget. It's a 5.2% growth in the budget, which is about $46.7 million additional funding. So this $943 million budget, almost 70% is in those two sources I've been talking about, the property tax and the sales tax. And so as we went through the budget preparation process, the majority of these sources were, I would call, green lights. We didn't see concerns, but two we do have concerns. One is sales tax, and the other is a solid waste fee. So I'll start off with sales tax. Sales tax has typically grown at about 4.5%. I will tell you the last few years, it's grown a whole lot more than that, but we would never budget that way. So FY '25, it was 5.5% growth. FY '24, 11.9% growth. FY '23, 20.2% growth. So to start off with 4.5% growth in FY '26 made sense. The reality is that growth is not there. It's about 0.2%, and that's about a $6.5 million hit to the FY '26 budget. The solid waste services fee, we talked about this in January. We talked about fee recovery. When we start to think about curbside, the recovery is about 34%. So instead of trying to make a case to go from 34% recovery to 100% recovery, we're just trying to get to 50% recovery and do it over a 4-year period. So with that said, over this 4-year period, trying to get to a 50% recovery, we think that that will help us in terms of service evaluation, managing long-term costs, and aligning the fees to the service type. I want to talk just a little bit about how the budget was put together. So we start off with that $46.7 million in additional revenue. The reality is, and you have asked me over and over again, well, Marcus, what is it just to keep the lights on? So to keep the lights on is a combination of what we call base adjustments, technical adjustments, and it goes anywhere from contractual increases to annualizing the cost of any salary increase to lease payments. And I will say the technical adjustments and the base adjustments were worth about $33.2 million. So it left us about $13.5 million for compensation increases. And a typical compensation increase is closer to $18 million. So we had to figure out how do we continue to provide core services, not lay off any of our employees, but to also make sure we can compensate them too. I do want to talk a little bit about three of the technical adjustments that while it's not compensation, while it's not salary, it is compensation related. So outside of compensation, we have contributions to the Elders, the retirement fund, which is general fund employees plus police, and that increased by $3.4 million. That's 100% on the city. We have our own fire retirement system, which we have challenges in. I do believe that's a great referral we can have over the next, within this year, to make sure that that fund, which is the City of Charlotte's fund, is stable. That's, again, 100% employer contribution, $4.3 million more. In the healthcare fund, and that's employer and employee, about $4.5 million increase with that. What's important to note with this, which really helps the employees, over the past few years, all of the increases the city has absorbed and not necessarily passed any of the increases on to the employees, which is more typical that there's some cost sharing in the increase. So I would just say that those three alone were about 26% of the growth in the general fund expenditure side. Now, we could have come in and said, well, how do you make up for that loss in sales tax? And basically for a quarter of a penny, a little bit more than a quarter of a penny, 0.27, property tax increase would be worth $6.5 million. You get the stability back in the revenue stream, and it's ongoing. We didn't do that because we believe that first we had to challenge ourselves and see what could we take out of the expenditure side. I'm not sure that all of my teammates are talking to me now, but what we did is we looked at adjustments to make sure we could continue to provide core services and continue to have a salary increase. So there's almost 21 positions that we've taken out of this budget. Now, some of those positions are related to our enterprise resource system, the ERP system we're putting in place. We would have programmed those savings from those positions and deployed new positions to it in other areas that are important, but instead we cut them. And there are a number of vacant positions that we eliminated. I will tell you up front, the vacant positions may have been vacant for 9 months, and we took them away. It didn't mean that they weren't important to the different departments, but we didn't have them filled. And if the principle was that we weren't going to lay anybody off, the first place to go would be those vacant positions. We also reduced contractual costs and cost recovery we had in alignment. So that was worth about $7.4 million more than what we lost in terms of the sales tax. Employees, the backbone of our city. I think what's important is we're going to continue doing what has worked for us. I know the March number is a little bit different, but when we start to look at the February number for vacancies across all of the categories, salaried, hourly employees, police, fire, we had got to single digits, and that's something I haven't seen since the pandemic. But we're going to continue with the 2.5% bump for having a CDL, and if it relates to your position, 2.5% bump for shift differential. I see somebody who's really instrumental in shift differential in the room. And the all-access pass for our employees, again, about $30 a year. That CATS all-access pass is valued at $2,100. So that's something available to all of our employees. And when you start to talk about how you impact the quality of life, that allows you to have more money in your pocket. We offer more than a job. We're going to nearly double our education to employment, E2E. 13 individuals graduated from high school, came to work for the city, full benefits, full salary like anybody else. We're going to have 28 this year, and 8 departments are participating. We continue to have apprenticeships. We have 200 employees that are engaged in our prepayment tuition. In other words, it's not that you have to take money out of your pocket and then try to figure out how you get reimbursed. We trust our employees. We'll take the risk. We'll take the gamble with prepaid tuition. What I'm really, really excited about is what we're doing around financial wellness and stability. We have our employee resource coordinator that is working with our employees, but we've also launched an employee rental assistance program, and we will launch this summer a low-interest loan program for hardships for our employees, just trying to make sure that people aren't taking advantage of our employees and we're taking care of home first. So we have at least a 3% increase for all employees. It's a little complicated, but I'll try to do it pretty quickly. So for our hourly employees, it's 4%. It's a combination of a 1.5% cost of living adjustment and 2.5% for merit. The general employees, there's a merit pool, about 3%. What I'm super excited about, we're going to bump minimum pay up again this year, $24 an hour minimum pay for our 40-hour-a-week full-time employees. I wish I could round that thing up to $50,000, but it's $80 bucks less than that, $49,920 per year for our lowest paid employees, and we'll keep working on that. We're committed to the STEP plan for police and fire. So they have a plan, and we are funding the plan, okay? And there's a series of steps, and there's at some point you top out. And when you top out, what you get is the 1.5%. So what I am recommending is to add another 1.5% as a bonus so that no employee gets less than 3%. And the reason I say a bonus is because the bonus becomes one time, as opposed to if we had a salary increase, that's over and above the plan. It's more than what the plan says, but to be candid, we've been doing more than what the plan says the last few years. So one-time resources that are available, $13.9 million is a 2024 surplus. And the way that works, the surplus, not the next fiscal year, but the fiscal year after that, we put it into PAYGO, essentially all of it, after we've made sure that we've made our 16% reserve. So this is nothing different than any other year. So we take the $13.9 million, we put it in PAYGO for this upcoming budget. And what are some of the things we do in PAYGO? So altogether, it's about $68.9 million. Remember, we talked about the buckets, and one of the buckets was PAYGO and how you deal with property tax and sales tax. So the $68.9 million, about $42 million of it is under that well-managed government. And we spend about $25 million just on purchasing vehicles. We have to purchase vehicles. $6.1 million is to maintain our city-owned facilities. And then we have $3.6 million of the general fund to finish up this ERP system. It's kind of interesting. We're at the final leg of it. It's going to be more than we initially thought, but we're at the final leg of it. And once we have the ERP system fully implemented, I think by September of this year, we're going to be able to do a whole lot more in terms of reporting. Safe communities, and I think this is extremely important, and this is why we're trying to balance, with this budget. There's $6.5 million in what we call safe communities, but $3 million in this FY26 budget is just for public safety radios. It's things that you have to do. Cities sometimes don't do it well. We're trying to adjust this in such a way that we do it well. And it's $11 million over 5 years for the public safety radios, which are extremely important. Workforce and business development, $17 million. I will say 14.6 of that is for our cultural facilities. So again, PAYGO, we don't talk about it a lot, but there's a lot that's in PAYGO, and surpluses from the year before, 2 years before, are used to fund that. So then we go, okay, so that's the one-time money, $13.9 million. There was $6.3 million in ARPA interest. So in order to pay for the bonus for the police and fire individuals who had topped out, that bonus is $2.1 million, and I am recommending to take it from the ARPA interest and then don't touch it. So leave $4.2 million there. And then after that, there's the ARPA revenue replacement that we have that's $5.3 million that I'm not touching at all either. That leave that up to the council's discretion of how you may want to use that. The only thing I would say, all of these funds in this column are one-time in nature, and they should be used for what's one-time in nature. So preparing for the big opportunity, I hear it often, and I like it when I hear it, is, the three-legged stool, a good-paying job, a place where you can live, and the mobility back and forth, and as well as the upward mobility in our community. So how do we prepare for it? The corridors of opportunity, as I mentioned earlier, $5 million that we programmed over 2 years, FY25 and FY26. But then there was a lot of discussion about, well, what if you're not a corridor? So what we're going to use is work with what we have in terms of our, as we started to do the community area plans, 14 of those, set aside $1 million so that in these areas, certain things can be tested too, so that if we have this opportunity for more revenue, that they're not at a disadvantage because we've had time to prepare for the corridors. That becomes exciting. At the annual strategy meeting, we brought in experts from across the country, and we talked about mobility investments in two important places, small business and workforce development. So I want to make sure that what we can utilize from what we learned around the strategic investment areas in being able to implement and do things faster at lower cost. Can we prepare small businesses and can we prepare the workforce for this transformational mobility revenue that's coming in? So with the small businesses, if you add all this up, it's almost $3 million. We had a conversation today in the Jobs and Economic Development Committee we have lessons learned from the Blue Line. We have lessons learned from the Blue Line extension. We have lessons learned from the Gold Line. But we can do better. And so what we'll do is figure out what those opportunities are and get these small businesses prepared for those opportunities. You know, even though I talked about, you know, just for the city, the $5.7 billion, you look at the entire plan, when you bring in federal funds too, it's almost $25 billion over 30 years. The other thing is workforce development. We have a workforce development strategy. It's the time to make sure that we have people prepared for the jobs that are associated with this transformational investment. So there's almost $3.5 million to the side for that. So again, I believe if we get this right, which we will get it right, it's a great opportunity for us to address mobility needs in our community. What's new in this budget, we're going to double down on our future. So in this budget, I'm recommending that we establish an Office of Youth Opportunities. So if you start to think about what's happening with youth in the city, we have CMPD that has programs. We have Housing and Neighborhood Services that has programs. We have Community Relations Department that has programs. Let's pull those programs together with one mission to promote economic opportunity and positive youth development. And so it's not going to cost us any more. It is just literally being more aligned. And we're going to bet on Rebecca Hefner being able to pull this all together with a data-driven approach. We'll keep seeking opportunities for collaboration and efficiency with all of our partners, the county, the private sector, the philanthropic community. On the short term, we have to get the Medic contract right, the solid waste recovery. We talked about the 4-year plan. But also in the midterm, there is the solid waste contract that expires in 2028. What can we do around permitting? What can we do around economic development? What can we do around affordable housing? So it's also important to remember that we serve this region through aviation, CATS, and water, and these are all the highest rated companies or enterprises that exist. So we have the highest ratings. This council is giving great guidance, and we're providing exceptional services. It wouldn't be a budget presentation without talking about fees. The solid waste services fee, even with trying to get to 40% in this next year, 50% in the 4-year period, goes up $10.03 for the year. That's a monthly increase of $135. Water is a monthly increase of $5.47, and stormwater is a monthly increase of 67 cents. So monthly increase for all of those, it's $7.49. Last, as I mentioned before, $5.3 million in reserve for the council as it relates to some of the ARPA replacement dollars. This is a $3.6 billion budget. It's come down a bit because this is not a bond year, and the same concept with some of our enterprise funds and some of the debt that they would have. But a $3.6 billion budget across all funds. I want to thank Team Charlotte. I want to thank Marie Harris and the budget team, and Teresa Smith, our CFO. And what I've presented to you is a structurally balanced budget. It's yours. We're here to assist in any way that you want us to assist. The mayor mentioned earlier, the May 12th is the public hearing, the 19th budget adjustments, the 29th of May straw votes, and June 9th the budget adoption. I appreciate the opportunity to present the budget to you, and we're here to work for you, just like every other day. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Jones, for this effort. I want to say thank you to every person that is a part of this great city and this great organization, and how much we all love and respect you, having those opportunities that do the things that you make possible for us. So I know usually we just get the big book, and Marie is passing them around now. I hope that we'll have a good opportunity to showcase with technology or things that we can do to get the community engaged in this process as well. So it's not just the council that would look at this budget and say, how do you feel about it? But all of our community leaders and people that work with us in this respect, I hope that they'll be able to step up as well. I don't believe that we are going to have any particular questions right away. I think if we read through the budget, we will be ready by May 12th to go in this direction. So comments or questions? Ms. Johnson?
Thank you,
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, and thank you for the presentation. It is an honor to serve this city, and thank you for the work that you do. Can we go back to slide, 27, if possible?
Give me 1 second.
Okay. So slide 27, looks like the revenues are $943 million. Okay, but that's not total revenue for the city. What bucket is that?
That's just the general fund. When you add all the funds together, it becomes 3.6 billion.
Okay, so do we have a list of all of those fund totals? Is that anywhere in the budget, including the hospitality fund? Is that anywhere in the budget?
Yes, it is in the budget, and I believe that during the annual strategy meeting, we had a breakdown of all those too, so we can make sure we get that to you again.
Okay, and not just me, just for the public to be able to see, to take a look at and see what it is that we're reviewing. Also, you said $25 million federal match for the transportation, or the sales tax federal match. What was that amount?
No, so thanks for asking.
Okay.
So over 30 years, the one-cent sales tax is estimated to get about 19.4 billion. And so you pull down almost another 5 billion from the federal government, and that's what I mean by the almost $25 billion opportunity.
Okay, thank you. Is there a Plan B? We know there's a lot of changes with the federal government right
Sure.
now.
Sure.
Is there a Plan B or, just,
Sure. So
or do we anticipate any changes or problems with the federal match?
Sure. So let's just assume that there was no one-cent sales tax even discussed. We've talked about this for some time, that we have our infrastructure needs. And so the infrastructure needs, if there's no sales tax, is actually the property tax. And so if you start to think about it, what would be the tension, for lack of a better word, or what would be the opportunities to raise the property tax at a particular level that the residents would feel fine with to take care of our own infrastructure needs. So well before the transportation plan, we talked about sidewalks, we talked about roads, we talked about lighting, Vision Zero. So I would try to decouple them. We have 2,000 projects that we need to find a funding source for, and it just seems that having the sales tax makes a lot of sense because, one, it's immediate, and about 30% of it comes from people who don't live in Mecklenburg County.
Thank you.
You're
I'm sorry, one more thing I want to say. Congratulations on the work for the city employees. That CPCC, that program, we've talked about this before when I worked in Ohio. My employer paid for a community college, so I got my first degree through a program like that. And when you get that, if you're a non-traditional student, when you get that associate degree, it's very motivating. So I went on to get 2 more after that. So it's an important program. I love to see the minimum wage, and I think we're responding to the needs of the city. So thank you for that work. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I know we're not going to ask very specific questions this evening, but thank you for the presentation and great job. I just have one question about the timeline. I forget the slide, that last slide, but I just wanted to make sure I believe it's the straw votes on May 29th. I don't know, I know that's during a holiday week. I just want to make sure that we have enough, council members able to participate, and if we don't, if we have some flex room on that. But I believe that is Memorial Day week, isn't it?
I think it's the Tuesday.
Is it not? The Thursday after?
It's Thursday? Thursday.
It's right before
Okay.
Okay. I just,
Oh, that's right.
it's attached to, I don't, from my world, some folks take Thursdays when it's a holiday weekend and make it a longer weekend. So I just want to make sure that we have council members around so that we'll have the right level of engagement for that. And just that, there's another high-level comment, I don't want, I know we're not taking lots of questions, but when you talked about on slide 43, the intergovernmental piece and working together, I would love this piece right here, which I think is fantastic for preparation for our transformational mobility plan. I would just love for us to think about CMS and how CMS could play a part in the preparation for those jobs, apprenticeships, et cetera. So I'll just leave my high-level comment to that point. Thank you, City Manager, fantastic job.
Thank you.
And team.
All right, we'll have another recognition from Councilmember Ashmira.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, Mr. Manager, great job on the presentation. No property tax increase while making significant investments, especially in our small businesses, recruiting and retaining the best talent that we have, and absorbing the inflation cost. As we know, there is market pressure, whether it's through inflation, tariffs, and to see that we have found ways to reduce the cost while absorbing that, I think that speaks tremendous to the financial leadership of yours as well as the budget team that we have for the city. It's a great model for other cities and municipalities to follow, not just in the state, but in the nation. I would be interested in a couple of things that I will say for our budget adjustment meeting. Number one, animal care and control. I know that we had allocated capital budget last year. I'm sure that it's somewhere in the budget book, and I will study this, almost 800 pages, in next coming weeks. But it would be helpful to get an update on where we are. Are we staying the course on what we had approved it previously?
I think that's more than fair, and something as high level as this, I should have mentioned, it probably was in my notes tonight. So yes, we continue to have the facility in our plan. Maybe more importantly, as a part of this proposal, and it's one of the efficiencies, I'm proposing we move animal care and control from CMPD and move it over to general services. General services runs facilities, and there are some efficiencies there with the back office. So that's another recommendation that's proposed, is to move animal care and control up. And I think it's important because that's about 90 positions, and I didn't want you to look at the budget book and say, oh, CMPD is only growing by 0.5%. It's because we've moved so large of a function out of CMPD.
Well, that's great to hear. I think that is to Ms. Councilwoman Johnson's point. We are responding to communities' needs. We've heard loud and clear from various animal care and control animal care advocates about the move as well as increasing the capacity. So that's great to hear, while also responding to our workers who have asked for increase in hourly pay, especially our hourly workers. So I appreciate the work and the investments that you have presented in this budget. That's all I have.
All right, thank you very much. Mr. Jones, I don't know how to say this more than, but I think that you've probably done a pretty good job on an 8th year, so, on this budget, and we're looking forward to it. I want everyone in the community to be aware of it, that we should be putting this out as much as we possibly can so that people have the ideas that they can come back, especially when we have the public hearing on the 12th. Please take a look and be cognizant of anything. There's a lot of information here, but also a lot of information that I believe is really important to our future and what we're going to do and achieve. So with that, do we have any other comments? All right, Ms. Molina.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. First off, my colleague here, she said, ain't it the 5th of May? It's Cinco de Mayo? It's like,
I knew it was the fifth.
yeah, I knew it was the 5th. I didn't know it was the 5th. So it's more of an American holiday than it is It's definitely a Mexican-American celebration. It's it's not Independence Day. It's often mistaken for Independence Day, but Cinco de Mayo is the Battle of Puebla. That was in, Mexico, but again, it's Mexican-American. But it's good, though, because we get to eat good food and celebrate in America and,
Wanted to be inclusive.
yeah, get some tacos, as people continue to say. But, Mr. Manager, thank you for an outstanding job. I think that, I think there were many things that stood out to me in this presentation, but I have to agree with Councilwoman Johnson, the implementation for our employees and us being the leaders in the pack, right? We have taken on the conversation around workforce development, and we're leading by example. And I think for you to structure that in our budget to say that we're, not only standing behind it from an implementation standpoint, but we're leading with our own employees by, paying them a competitive wage, allowing for learning opportunities that would potentially over time increase their wages. It says a lot about where we stand as an organization, and I'm proud to stand behind that. Additionally, I think when we talk about what we talked about in the Jobs and Economic Development Committee this morning with regards to the federal matches from multiple federal organizations, and I think it's really important to note that there is some uncertainty, right? We all hear it on a national stage. Of course, we're municipal leaders. We do what we can from a municipal space. But knowing that we have those strategic, alignment opportunities as far as grants are concerned to kind of extend our reach, so to speak, to provide additional resources to our community members. And I think I saw, like, Mr. Chairman, correct me if I'm wrong, like 4 buckets today when we were talking about, or I think that was the TAP committee too, but we were talking about the different buckets of money that would be in addition to, it's just so much, the scope. So I would encourage our community members to take a deeper dive, a deeper look, because these are interdepartmental budgets is what I've noticed, right? From everything from our CAP to just, and not remiss, we're talking about the implementation of we keep using this acronym about a complete computer, an ERP. It stands for Enterprise Resource Planning System. So it actually allows all 14 departments to talk about projects and baselines, and we become more efficient where we're not planning in 2 different departments for something that would, we wouldn't be spending double money. We are going to save money, we'll save time, there will be more efficiency, more communication between departments. It brings us up to speed from an information and technology standpoint. So many things. I think once we even achieve that, we could see some budgetary differences over time. So, I mean, like I said, just thing after thing after thing, I could pick out and say, good job, great job, and keep up the good work. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mayor. I really appreciate that. So, Mr. Jones, thank you so much for your hard work and your commitment and dedication to doing what you do best. A lot of times as I come in, and last year, I didn't have a clue, didn't know what was going on. But you took the opportunity to explain and work with me on the budget and help me understand it. So from my perspective, I like the fact that you listen to the people and you let the people champion the budget. A lot of times, people on council seem to think they can do your job, but I beg to differ. I don't think that they can, and that's why you're in that position. I would love to see more of the budget as it is aligned with the people in the community and what their concerns and their needs are. You do an amazing job with putting it together. Is this 800 pages or so?
I don't know, is it 800?
Do anybody know the pages? It's an estimate.
We have a budget in brief. We always provide that to you, okay?
Okay, so it was thick last year. I didn't read all of it for full transparency. And I won't be reading all of it this year. We're a team, and so I will be relying on truth and transparency, relying on colleagues to come together. There are certain parts I look for. I look for the people's budget. I look for people to reach out to me, send emails, tell me what they would like to hear. We have dates set up here for the budget schedule. I like for people to show up. 400 pages of what you do best and your staff, and then I still have community meetings. I have to show up in another capacity because this is a part-time job, although we don't work part-time hours. It's a part-time job. So I have other commitments and other obligations. So I love to see when we have people that champion the budget, like the people's budget, like hearing from the animal shelter advocates and things like that, hearing from the city employees that send us emails and tell us what they're looking for specifically. So if I tell you that I'm gonna read 400 pages, I'm not gonna tell you that because I'm not gonna do it. But, I will look for people to champion different areas and move it forward. But I thank you so much for bringing forth what you do. I'll look over it. But to say I'm going to master 400 pages, I'm not going to say that, and that's on public record. I'm not going to do it. I didn't do it last year, but I will be looking for people, constituents, to share their concerns, and I'm always open to listen to the community needs and what they move, to advocate those and move those forward. But again, thank you for being the expert in that area. And I look for the people that depend on me the most to come with me like I did last year and share what their concerns and their needs are for this budget so we can move the agenda forward. Thank you so much.
All right. Mr. Graham?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And Mr. Manager, I too want to lend my voice to my colleagues around the table in terms of the preparation of the budget, and compliments to you and the whole finance team that does a really, really tremendous job in terms of ensuring that our community, not only by meeting the needs of the budget, but in the community, but being able to afford it and working through our finances. What doesn't get a lot of attention, you just highlighted tonight, was really the three enterprise divisions that are comprised within the budget, aviation, CATS, and water. Certainly that does a tremendous job providing services not only for the city but also for the region, and just the aviation itself and what's going on over there, the infrastructure improvement, the ability to work with a wide variety of stakeholders that make the region, the regional asset, the airport, as well as our CAT system, I think one of the best in the country, and certainly we're moving in that the right direction with all those enterprise funds. So I think that's something that tends to get overlooked in the budget because it kind of stands on its own. But I just wanted to highlight that and also highlight the fact that if you come to work for the city of Charlotte, your base salary is basically $50,000. And so there's a lot of conversation about affordability and what the city is paying its employees and our reach, but things that we control from this dais. I think we're trying to put our money where our mouth is in terms of trying to create an environment where affordability for those who work for the city, it's achieved. I think that's you couple the $50,000 with the continuing education, the other perks that are in the budget, it goes a long ways. And then lastly, and I'll be quiet, just the youth engagement. We talked a lot about that earlier last year in terms of trying to identify opportunities for youth in our community in terms of getting them away from crime and violence and providing resources for them. I think this is a step in the right direction by consolidating all the departments that kind of engage youth into one umbrella. I'm almost certain that Rebecca can deliver on that, but it certainly does go a long way in terms of putting a spotlight on that and putting resources with it, not additional resources, but additional time and additional eyeballs. I think that's really, really important. So I look forward to getting into the budget, all 800 pages, and there is a great executive summary that's helpful every year, that's not quite as thick and cumbersome, but the executive summary certainly works, and it's really detailed in its own self. So I look forward to reviewing that, and as Councilmember Brown said, I think every council member has a particular interest where you kind of go look for that particular page. And so we are a team, and hopefully we can make sure that all 800 pages, someone's eyeballs has reviewed it and give you and the staff and the community the responsive feedback that's necessary. Look forward to the public hearing on May 12th.
Well, Mr. Jones, thank you again for the teamwork. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Driggs.
So, brief comment tonight. I think we need to appreciate that we are now talking over a 2 or 3 year horizon in terms of our plans for the future. This is not an ordinary year-on-year incremental budget. So there are some issues in there that I look forward to discussing in more detail. Should emphasize too, though, right at the front, under the cover page, is a Distinguished Budget Presentation Award that the city received for July 21st, 2024. And this is the same quality of work. We also need to recognize, I think, that yes, the manager and the finance staff, but in fact, the preparation of the budget goes way down into the departments. And a huge number of people participated in submitting requests or working out their numbers and then getting them worked into this budget. It is a 450-page document, but most of it is reference. So if you look at some of the tables and so on, you get a feel for the aggregate. And that's really what it is. You can spend an hour or two with this and get a good feel for where we're going. And then anything you want to know, how many employees in this department, it's all broken out. And the disclosure in the document is amazing, but you don't have to absorb it all in order to understand its thrust. So wonderful piece of work, as usual. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. I want to again say, Mr. Jones, congratulations. And our next step is to recognize Councilmember James Mitchell, who has already gotten his budget and he's ready to go. I'd also like to have a recommendation, call on our attorney for a motion for a closed session. Mr. Fox?
Madam Mayor, members of the City Council, I request a closed session. The motion should be to go into closed session pursuant to North Carolina General Statute, Section 143-318, 11A3, to consult with the city attorney to preserve the attorney-client privilege. That should be the motion.
All right. We have a motion on the floor. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yes, I have a question.
All right, yes?
So does that mean we're adjourning this meeting?
No.
No.
So we're going to come back after the closed session to adjourn?
You can adjourn in closed session, or you can come back out in
Okay.
open
Right.
session.
Okay.
If
So
action is taken.
So with that, all in favor of the closed session, raise your hands. Anyone opposed? All right, thank you very much. We'll have all of our folks that